Chapter 14. Welcome to Wayside. Mr. K and Dr. P. Somebody's climbing up the stairs with a paper bag on his head. All right, and it says author's note right here, so I'm going to read that. It's in italics. Author's note. Due to strict rules about confidentiality and to avoid unnecessary embarrassment for those involved, the names of the characters have been omitted from the story. Please don't try to guess. Mr. K headed up the stairs. He wore a paper bag over his head. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. All the little brats, as he liked to call them, should be in class, but he wore the paper bag just in case he encountered a stray one. When he reached the third floor, he tripped over the top step and fell onto the landing. I knew I should have cut some eye holes, he said to himself. His knee hurt, but that was the least of his worries. He got back to his feet and limped up the stairs. Actually, only one eye hole would have helped. His left eye was shut tight. His other eye was wide open. The eyebrow was raised in a constant expression of surprise. By counting his steps, he knew when he reached the fourth floor. He felt his way to the door, then knocked. Yes, who's there? Asked Dr. P from the other side. Mr. K did not want to say his name aloud in case anyone was listening. He opened the door and entered. If Dr. P was surprised to see a person with a bag over his head, he didn't show it. He had been trained to keep a straight face, no matter what. Whenever someone came to see him, it was part of his job to act like everything was perfectly normal. Yes, what seems to be the problem? He asked, stroking his beard. Mr. K removed the bag. Yikes, screamed Dr. P, throwing both his hands up in the air. He quickly regained his composure. So why did you come to see me? He asked as he rubbed his beard. Mr. K said, noise as he pointed to his face. Your face is stuck, said Dr. P. Mr. K nodded. Please have a seat. Mr. K sat on the couch. Dr. P came closer to get a better look. He poked a puffed out cheek. Does it hurt? He asked. Mr. K shook his head. How about this? He tugged on the tip of Mr. K's tongue. Again, Mr. K shook his head. Very interesting, said Dr. P. He walked to the bookshelf. He muttered as he tried to find the book he needed. This should do it, he declared, moving a very fat book. He bonked Mr. K on top of the head with it. Ugh, exclaimed Mr. K. Any better, Dr. P? I bit my tongue, Mr. K said without moving his lips. This will be more difficult than I thought, said Dr. P. He returned to the bookshelf, chose a different book, and brought it to his desk. He thumbed through the pages. Cold feet, sticky fingers. Here we are. Stuck face. He silently read to himself for a minute or two, then looked up and asked, Did you have a pet when you were a child? Mr. K nodded. Dr. P looked back at his book and read some more. A cat? Mr. K shook his head. A dog. He nodded. Did you love your dog? Mr. K head didn't move at all. A tear trickled down his face and dripped down his face. Excellent, declared Dr. P. I think we're making real progress. He shut the book, scooted his chair up close, and leaned toward Mr. K. Look into my eyes, he said. With his one eye, Mr. K stared at Dr. P. Dr. P stared back. He held up a gold chain with a green stone attached. He let the stone swing back and forth between them. Their faces were so close, the stone kept barely missing their noses. I'm going to take you back to another time and place, said Dr. P. You are just a young boy, playing with your dog in your backyard. Your grandmother smiles from the kitchen window. A pie is baking in the oven. You can smell cinnamon. Mr. K's nose twitched. Now your grandmother is outside, holding the pie. She asks if you want some. Mr. K's tongue remained sticking out. However, it slowly moved from one side of his mouth to the other. Dr. P noted the breakthrough. But instead of giving you a piece, he said, she smashes it in your face. Mr. K's mouth popped open again. Then his face snapped back into place. His eyebrows lowered, his eye opened, his cheek unpuffed. His tongue went back inside where it belonged. Why did she do that to me? He cried. Dr. P handed him a tissue. Mr. K wiped his eyes and then cleaned the imaginary pie off his face. He stood and straightened his suit. You won't tell anybody anything about this, will you? He asked. Everything that happens inside this office is strictly confidential, Dr. P assured him. Mr. K left the office feeling as dignified as ever. Dr. P leaned back in his chair with his hands behind his head. He felt very satisfied. It's not every day that he gets to help someone as important as Mr. K. Dr. P's tongue was sticking out. His left eyebrow was raised. His right eye was shut tight, and it looked like he was trying to swallow a tennis ball. This doofus or goofball face keeps transferring from all different people. I wonder who it's going to go to next. Yikes. Do you know who Dr. P is and Mr. K? Hopefully you were able to figure it out. Bye.